Okay, so not only do we finally get to talk about a hockey game in which the Calgary Flames have won, which I do few and far between on this show, but we get to talk about a hockey game in which the Calgary Flames won. They mostly looked okay, and they scored more than 3 goals. Welcome to Game Over Calgary on this Saturday night, this hockey night in Canada. My name is Auddie James. The Calgary Flames winning this hockey game 6-3 against the Seattle Kraken. And joining me, first time on the show this year, long time returning guest, and obviously STPN royalty, the athletic royalty, zone time. You know him, you love him, Julian McKenzie. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. If we're at a point where we're considering the royalty of any kind, maybe
I'm
the
at that
standards
point.
aren't so high. Well,
I'm at
then
that
you're
point.
just way too kind, Auddie James.
That's what
You're
I've been
just way
told.
too kind. You must be in such a great mood
I'm
after that game.
gonna
I have never seen you this happy, to be quite honest with you.
I'm pretty chipper because we can maybe put to rest the Auddie curse is a
When was the
thing.
last time you were this happy? Your wedding?
Probably. And before that, I couldn't even tell you. Couldn't even tell you. We're happy tonight, Julian. It was a good game
You should be happy.
for the most part.
My favorite part of watching the ending of that game, I guess, was like the first empty net goal. Jonathan Huberdeau on the bench, extending his arms and looking to the skies. Thank the Lord. It's over. The losing, it's done. 6 games. If they lost, it was going to go to 7. It's over. People could be happy now. The losing's done. Ding dong, the streak is dead.
Yeah, it's a good time. It could have gone real sideways. Let's just say that if it had gone the other way for the Flames, I don't know if I would have want to be on this show, let alone scrolling Twitter or trying to see what Flames fans are talking about. I don't even know what Twitter's talking about right now. Hopefully it's good things because for the most part, it was a pretty good hockey game. We'll get into that and more on this episode of Game Over Calgary. But before we do that, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions you want to ask myself or Julian about the Flames, about anything, about what Julian's up to, anything like that, save that for the end. We'll hit the presser at the end of the show. We're not going to read through too many questions during the stream. My puppy is doing all sorts of things, not wanting to stay on.
I gotta say, the fact that you're wearing one reminded me that I gotta wear mine. I appreciate that.
I'm having a hard time with it, but we'll make it work. Save your questions for the end is the moral of this message. Save your questions and we will get to them when we hit the presser at the end. And of course, get more Flames fans in here. Get some Kraken fans in here. Share the stream, like the stream, do all that fun stuff. Put your comments in the chat. We're gonna go through as much as we can. But Julian, we mentioned it off the hop. Good game. Your thoughts, I guess, coming into this game, obviously Pospisil getting his NHL debut. We've seen a lot of rookie laps lately. It's been nice to see.
I gotta say, like, the biggest difference between last year's team and this year's team is this team is willing to go to its youth to try to solve its problems. One of the most noticeable things about this team, especially during this losing streak, is how slow they've looked and how they desperately need youthful energy in that lineup. I think Jakob Pelletier is being missed for the vibes he's able to provide and the pace he's able to bring. But calling up Connor Zary earlier in the week and seeing how good he played against the Dallas Stars and keeping him in the lineup. And look, he gets himself a point on that power play goal from Noah Hannafin. In fact, like, I keep thinking, I know I singled it out on Twitter, but the way that power play goes down, where Noah Hannafin, Jonathan Huberdeau, and Connor Zary are feeding around the puck, I keep thinking of how Mark Savard, ultimately the power play coach for the Flames, he wants this team to be able to move the puck around. If you have it longer than like 2 seconds, that's like 2 seconds too many. On this particular stretch that that was isolated, I think Scorchstack got it, and then I quote tweeted it. Connor Zary is the only one on that stretch who's like getting rid of it after like 2 seconds. Like Hannafin and Huberdeau are still figuring it out. And ultimately Hannafin takes his time and gets that shot. But the fact that Connor Zary has already grasped that, for me, that's really great. And the fact that he has brought energy to align with Nazem Kadri, we know his start to the season has not been ideal. He now has points in 3 straight games. And strangely enough, I don't know if you know this, but like has assisted on 4 Flames rookies goals dating back to Peltier's last year.
Peltier. Yeah.
Coronado, Pelche, Pospisil tonight,
Yep.
Zary on earlier in the week. Like that's just like a weird stat. But the fact that I mean, Kadri's looked better. I generally think the last few games he has tried to put in more effort. He has tried to be more engaged. Yeah, and I think the youth play a role in it. Martin Pospisil, the right place at the right time on that stretch, that led to that goal. I think just the youth have to be commended for the win today and just their play since that game against the Dallas Stars. I think the fact that the Flames are willing to go down that well as opposed to last year where they were not willing to do that, or they were very hesitant to do that by comparison, that is something that I think the Flames front office staff and the coaching staff should be commended for. One of the few bright spots to this season is how the youth have been able to play roles on this team. And I get that Matthew Coronado's on the team right now. He looked pretty good in the AHL yesterday, but the commitment to development and the commitment to giving these guys a chance, I think that's on display for this team right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Kadri too, because we can just jump right into that first and foremost. You and I talking a little bit before we started the stream just about how much more mobile they look, how faster that line looks of Sharangovich, Kadri, and Zary. But yeah, has Kadri found his guy? Is he finding his kind of his mesh here? Because like, I'll be honest, like up until the last few games here, Kadri's, obviously it's no secret, hasn't really been much of a presence whatsoever, but looks a hell of a lot better with Zary, who's just been shot out of a cannon. There was that one play where he, very similar to the previous game against Dallas, where he kind of takes the puck out of the zone, slows it down, then makes his move and just undresses whichever defenseman's in front of him. And, he's creating space, and I think Kadri's really benefiting from that.
Yeah, I'll say this about Zary. Like, it felt like every time I watched him in the AHL, he would do that move like at least once a game. And I always wondered, like, okay, is he able to do that at the NHL level? And when he did that against Dallas, he does that again tonight against Seattle. I mean, that is just really special to see. But for Nazem Kadri, I don't think it's that much of a surprise that he looks better alongside faster players. People forget that Nazem Kadri, to start off the season last year, he was really good. And not only was he like pretty good, the line that he was on with Andrew Mangiapane and Dylan Dubé was good. He had faster guys alongside him who were also playing like feisty and working in corners and maintaining offensive possessions in the offensive zone. And like, this team needs more pace. Like, as much more speed and youth as they could get, it will make everyone better. And I'm not surprised that Kadri looks better alongside faster guys, alongside guys who can skate. I think for the Flames, if they want to be successful with this core, it needs to be faster. The way the league has gone in terms of skill and speed, you cannot afford to play behind, especially on an offensive standpoint where you need that going up in transition and you're trying to make plays happen. They need that. I think Kadri looked a little better tonight, and I think the fact that there's speed around him is a reason why.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a great transition into kind of how the Flames, this is just something maybe I noticed too. The speed, the foot speed and the transition and everything kind of got better as the game went on for the Flames.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed specifically in the third period is how they countered, because the Kraken, you and I were talking about it during the game, going back and forth. Foot speed is huge. They're mobile. Their D are engaged in the offensive zone. All these things that help them move the puck just like effortlessly. It looks like they do it so well. It's very fluid. And in the third period, the Flames kind of countered that with their own, like, it's going to sound stupid, but they countered it with speed. Like, they got faster, and in turn they looked a lot better. And I think that if that's something that they can inject and get rolling here, is that speed, that's going to be a much different looking Flames team going forward here.
I wonder how much has to do with the fact that they have an opportunity to close out that game and end that losing streak, right? I mean, the fact that they started off that third period as well as they did, and they just kind of kept that going, like, that's as good of a third period as we've seen since like game one of this season when they battled back and beat the Winnipeg Jets. Like, they needed that, and they wanted it more than the Seattle Kraken, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how many more wins we're going to see from this team. I don't know if it's going to get to a point where they're still going to have to retool,
Uh-huh.
and we'll see how it goes. But that's a win that this group really, really needed. I think after that Dallas loss, it was a little bit more positive than what we've seen previously. I think the team had felt that they had done good things in that game, but they really wanted that win at the end of it. And they battled in that third period too against Dallas. It's a much different change. I know I'm not in the room there, but just visibly watching them on TV, it's a much different atmosphere around the team right now compared to what it was like against St. Louis, where Mackenzie Weegar saying that team broke their will, right?
Yeah.
So I I don't know how the rest of the season's going to go, but the Flames really needed that win for their sake and for those young players in the lineup as well. It's further validation that calling up Pospisil, calling up Zary, those were the right decisions to make.
Yeah, 100% they were, and it's nice to see them getting rewarded on the score sheet as
Mm-hmm.
well. Um, Lost in all of this was Nick DeSimone's first NHL point as well, with
Oh
an
yeah, he's
assist.
got to get his props, man. He's got to get his
Yeah,
props.
yeah. There's a lot of good things happening tonight, and lost in that was the Nick DeSimone point. On the flip side, we would
Mm-hmm.
be remiss if we didn't talk about early in this game a likely phone call from George Peros that will be probably headed in Andrew Mangiapane's way. Um, for those of you who missed it, I'm sure you can find the video circulating online. Basically, Jared McCann was on top of the puck, laying down on the ice, and Monge hits him with a gnarly little cross check right to the back of the neck, shoulders to neck, kind of. I see people arguing that he hit him in the shoulders. I think it was as clear as day. It was hitting the neck and slid up the back of his head. Either way, his neck snaps forward and kind of pile drives into the ice. So he's assessed a 5 in a game. And, the Kraken score on that power play. So, you and I were going back and forth again there, just how uncharacteristic that is. But early in the game, the Flames looked like they were playing frustrated hockey. And I think that was just a byproduct of that. But either way, just give me what you thought about that.
So the cross check itself looks bad, as you mentioned. It's
Yeah.
in a very dangerous area. McCann is down on the ice. He's covering the puck. I know that guys will do that where they'll keep a guy down, or in that situation, if a guy's clearly covering up that puck, like they will fend at it. Like I think if Mangiapane is digging his stick into McCann, he's trying to get the puck out. I mean, I could be wrong, but he's not putting himself in penalty trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's actively trying to cover it, and McCann's not really supposed to be doing that. But the fact that that's his way of trying to get McCann to move off the puck, it's a very dangerous play. Like McCann is in a vulnerable position on the ice, and it almost, I don't want to say he intended to injure him. I don't want to go that far.
Yeah.
But like, I wonder if the Department of Player Safety interprets it as that. Like, I don't know. What I will say is, and for those who didn't watch intermission on Sportsnet for the broadcast, but Elliot Freeman brought up the fact that the closest scenario he can think of was when Jamie Benn did a sort of similar move to Mark Stone in the playoffs, and that resulted in a 2-game suspension for Jamie Benn.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that is used as precedent. I mean, granted, it was in the playoffs, but even then, like, is that enough to be used as precedent to suspend Andrew Mangiapane? Like, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get some sort of discipline. I don't think we're going to be seeing like a 4-game suspension like what we've seen to start the year, but like, do we see a game? I mean, it happened early enough in the game where the game misconduct comes in and he basically sat out the game.
Yeah, it was.
So if he gets another game, he's out for a while. So if you see him get like another game or two, like you could basically call it a 3-game suspension as an example, because he already basically sat out 1 game. But
Right.
I don't know. That's the type of plays that you don't want to see in the game. Those are the type of plays that if you're the Department of Player Safety, you have to discipline. And I get that Andrew Mangiapane, it's a bit uncharacteristic for him. We don't normally see him do that type of stuff. He does play a little bit with that edge. He can work in those corners if he needs to, but I don't expect him to do stuff like that. I think he's going to get at least a game. I'd be surprised if he got less. I'd be a little surprised if he got a little bit more, but I think a game is a sufficient punishment for Andrew, and maybe he comes back in time for that Flames road trip.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And frankly, the Department of Player Safety this year has seemingly been setting the tone and setting the standard early on these, bullshit plays that they're trying to eliminate. We saw it early with Rasmus Andersson in the hit on Patrick Laine, and then you see Charlie McAvoy with a headshot too, and he he gets the same punishment as Andersson did. And maybe this is as shitty as it's going to be for the Flames. It's maybe another example. It's hey, this is the kind of play that we don't want to see, and this is what you're going to sit out for if we, if it takes place. So I think, not only was it dangerous, it was dirty. It's a chance for the Department of Player Safety to really set the standard and set the standard early. So I would, like you, I would be surprised if he doesn't get a call. I think 1-2 games, one or two. Yeah. And like you said too, and you could call it a 2-gamer based on him sitting out. So
I'll add this too with the Auddie Mangiapane hit as well. That comes like moments after Dan Vladar makes an incredible save at the other end, and you're in the offensive zone. You miss a chance on net, and then that happens, and you take that penalty. Like, instead of turning that into more offensive chances for yourself and to help out your goaltender, who again made a great save, you turn it into a negative and a power play goal against. Like, that was, I mean, it's a good thing the Flames woke up and turned that into a win for themselves, because imagine they lose that game. You could almost make an argument that it starts from that play, and they never really recover from that. But the Flames fought, stuck with it, turned the game around, and we're talking about a win instead of a loss today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, quick housekeeping as we're chugging along here on Game Over Calgary. Save your questions for the end for the presser. Be sure to like the stream, share it on your favorite social media. If you're listening on playback, I don't know, review it. Give us a good star rating on your preferred podcatcher. There's so many out there.
5-star stunner rating, everybody.
That's it.
5-star stunner rating. We need it.
We need it. We love it. So be sure to show us support where you can, and we appreciate you guys all being here. On the topic of Dan Vladar, hell of a game from him tonight. I think he looked. He didn't have the heaviest of workloads tonight. I think the Kraken finished with somewhere in and around 20 shots. You could argue the power play goal was just, what it was, a goal on the power play. You're down a man, not really his fault. That first goal too was, I think the Bjorkstrand goal was the first one, was an absolute piss missile. Just a top blocker side snipe that I don't think many goalies are saving. It was just a really nice shot, and he got beat clean on that. But aside from that, hell of a game from Dan Vladar tonight.
Yeah, first off, piss missile. I'm not going to be able to erase that term out of my head. Also, I think for Dan Vladar, I know the GAA didn't look good coming in. What I will say is I have a hard time putting much of the blame on the Flame season on goaltending, and I think they've deserved better from how the defense has played and how the offense has played up until tonight anyway, which is kind of cruel when you consider how last year the offense needed to be a little bit better. The defense I thought was solid, but the goaltending was not where it needed to be, and that's from both Markstrom and Vladar. So I think the fact that the Flames are at where they're at, but the goaltending for the most part is still, I think, solid beyond the goals they've allowed. We're seeing incredible saves from both Markstrom and Vladar to this point in the season. And if they figure it out defensively and they tighten up, and again, if they commit to this core, because that's still going to be a big question hanging around this team, especially as we approach American Thanksgiving, that is ultimately going to help fuel a possible turnaround. If the goaltending stays up and they don't fall off, that's going to help. And performances like tonight go in the right direction towards that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I asked you before we came on, is this a turning point game? And you're like, yeah, maybe. I don't know if I'm ready to call it that, but if everything catches up to the way that Markstrom and Vladar have been between the pipes for the Flames, and on my they can't see it on stream, but I still have my missing sign. Oh yeah, maybe you can right here. I still have my missing sign up from the last one. We can start crossing some names off because they're maybe on their way back. But for as much shit as I've given Noah Hannafin to start this season, tonight was probably his best game that I've seen him play this year, and that dates back to the preseason too, where it looked like he was coasting. But yeah,
I'm surprised about that because Hannafin got himself some points to start off the year. I mean, maybe in the losing streak he didn't look as good, but I thought to start off the year, he looked pretty. I'll tell you what, he looked like a guy who was thinking about the money he was trying to make on that next contract. I'll give you that for the first few games of the year. I don't know. I think with his game, he's not the most remarkable defenseman at times. He's mobile. He can get some offense going, but there's so many other guys who are a little bit more dynamic, which is, a knock against him in some ways, but also not a knock because with defensemen, a lot of the times you don't want to be in a position where you're noticed in a game, right? Unless like you're like Cale Makar. Like if you're playing solid defensively, we don't think about you too much. That's good. That's a good sign. I think Noah Hannafin, at least the start was good, and maybe he's just been quiet the last 2 games, but for him to get that power play goal against the Kraken, that goes a long way for him too.
He looked good. He looked really good. I was happy to see it because maybe rightly or wrongly, frustrations maybe were tempering with me, but he was the whipping boy for me in terms of who to give shit to. But yeah,
actually, you know what? I'll give you this. The worst I thought he looked was in that Columbus game on God, I don't remember who scored, but there's like a clear play where Rasmus Anderson's like tied up in front of the net. And Elias Lindholm was trying to get like a center like across the way, and Noah Hannafin leaves his spot to go try to cover that, and there's a wide open Columbus Blue Jacket right in front of the net. And you've seen enough games, you've seen the zone structure. I call it like the hockey box in one, because like in basketball you have the box in one structure. It's basically that. Like Noah Hannafin was out of place on that play. He should not have moved.
He blew it.
He absolutely did. But like that's like I thought that was like the worst that was the worst he had looked to that point. Other than that, he doesn't usually make that many mistakes on the ice.
No, that's true. But like I said, it was good to see a good game out of him. And yeah, that blue line is not without its faults at times, but starting to maybe get things coming around for him, looking a little better. Just need to find some more goals. It's one game. Yeah.
It's a good game, and it's a game that I think if you're the Flames is validation for the fact that maybe the losses came because you didn't have the puck luck on your side, and your goaltending is as good as it can be, and this team has said all along they feel they're a good team. They still believe in themselves top down. That's a game you look at and you say, see, like that's a win we needed, and that's a win that we were able to get. It's also just one game. And considering the temperature with the fan base, considering the temperature with your whole organization, all it takes is like a loss on Tuesday against Nashville entering that road trip, and all of those bad vibes resurface again. Like they need to turn that Nashville game on Tuesday into a win, and they need to come away with that from that road trip with points. They need to take advantage of the fact that the Leafs are not playing at their best right now. They need to take advantage of the Ottawa Senators, who are coming off one of the wildest weeks in recent memory. Like, let me tell you something. Like, your best defenseman being out for weeks with an injury, a player, a restricted free agent you're about to sign, a suspended due to a gambling infraction, your GM fired, you lose a first-round pick, and now people are wondering if your head coach is going to be gone before the weekend is up too. Like if that went through an entire season for a team, we're like, damn, you're going through it. That's like 10 days.
It's the first month of the year.
Like the first month of the season for the Ottawa Senators. To bring it back here, the Calgary Flames need to take advantage of that situation, and they need to find a way to get some wins on that. And the Montreal Canadiens are off to a really good start. They need to find a way to get wins too on that. I think for the Flames, if they want to show that this core is worth at least punting the idea of retooling up until the deadline, you need to pick up points on these next 4 games. Like you can't be in a situation where it's like you get one more win out of that or you fall into another losing streak. I think this is a really important stretch of games coming up for all of those guys in that room. And I know there are probably people listening right now that are saying, no, they should rebuild anyway. They should retool. I don't necessarily disagree with that at this point. But for those guys in that room who want to keep this team around and they truly feel that they have what it takes to be a playoff team, and who knows after that, this stretch of games coming up will go well. They need it to go well.
It's just one game, he says.
It is
which is just really like, Auddie, stop being such an optimist. Stop being so happy.
I'm
You're trying
an
to no
optimist,
no no no
brother.
no. You're trying to kill my
I'm trying to
vibe.
be real though.
I get
I'm
it. You're just
to be
trying to kill my
real.
vibe. You
Nah,
said off the hop, Audie's happy. Never seen him this happy before.
I've
And
been
then you're like,
seeing you this happy, man.
I gotta knock this guy down a little bit. This is getting
Look,
weird.
Dude. I get it. I feel like I don't want to come across as a hater.
You're not a hater. I'm fucking with you.
Here's the thing. Between this game, I saw people. I just got to take a moment here. Let me take a moment here. I saw some people on Wednesday night get their loving on Connor Zary. He had a really good debut. I thought he was really impressive. But there are people going out of their way being like, that was a spectacular debut. That was amazing. They were using all these adjectives beyond
the best Connor in
saying.
Alberta.
Like, is the bar that low? Like, what's up? Like, geez, like for real? Like you guys in Calgary have not seen enough from like prospects in their debuts. Like, I thought of Ryan Paling, who scored a hat trick on Hockey Night in Canada.
When was the last like prospect debut that Flames fans could be excited for?
That's a great question. I was definitely not around for that. Like, I think Connor Zary, like they're saying, like him scoring at his HL debut is like the first Flames prospect to do that in what, like 6 or 7 years. I'll find the exact stat, but like, yeah, I guess the bar must be that low. And I'm not trying to throw shade at fans or the team or anything like that. It's just when I saw people go out of their way, be like, yo, that was a spectacular debut from Connor Zary. I'm like, let's slow the roll a little bit. Connor Zary, back-to-back good games for him. And if he keeps that going, Nelson Kadri even said to himself after the Wednesday game, it's all about him just being consistent and keeping that going. Like, if he keeps that going, then you could really get your loving on Connor Zary. And hey, maybe that's the Flames rookie who ends up getting Calder votes at the end of the year and not Matthew Coronado. Or maybe he still does. But like, 2 games.
Pipe it down.
On se calme, comme on dit en français. Like, on se calme. Let's calm down. Let's just ease up.
On se calme.
On se calme. Let's calm down.
On se calme. I'm gonna keep that one in the back pocket here. On se calme as
on se calme. On se calme, mon gars. On se calme. On se calme, mon G.
Well, mon G, I like that. I took French immersion in high school, and this is just a side note, unrelated as fuck. But I've lost like every ounce of French that I could speak. I've only been out of high school for, golly, 10 years now. It sounds so silly.
I forget if you're older or younger than me.
No, no. You thought when we first met that I was older than you.
Yes.
And I think I'm 2 years younger than you.
So you've been out of high school for a decade. I
graduated in 2014.
Okay, I graduated from high school in 2011. But also you probably had grade 12.
I did.
So we don't have grade 12 in Quebec.
You were too good for grade 12. You could just say it.
Yeah, that's why they put me. 12. Yeah, that's immediate. That's exactly why I went to CJEP after and did 2 more years of school before university and then more university. That's exactly it. On
bro just loves school.
Yeah, that's why I almost didn't want to leave.
That's
Anyway.
right. I don't even know where I was going with. Oh yeah, lost on my French, but yeah, we'll work on the. Every time you come on here, you got to teach me reignite my more my francophone side. Game over Calgary. If you're just tuning in, thanks for tuning in so far. It's been a good show. Julian McKenzie here with me, recapping the Calgary Flames 6-3 win tonight over the Seattle Kraken. You talked a little bit about the look ahead for the Flames here. I was just you rhymed off all the games, and I was trying to remember, but I got to pull it up.
So
all
Nashville Nashville, and then Friday against the Toronto Maple Leafs, Saturday against the Ottawa Senators, and then Tuesday after that they're against the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, so
I probably remember that because I'm going to be on that road trip. That's why I have that in my head.
It's going to be is it too early to say make or break road trip?
I don't think so at all. I'll reiterate that point because of the fact that, I don't remember specifically when American Thanksgiving is, but we look at that as the The
It's a litmus
unofficial
test.
date.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a litmus test. Like if you're in a playoff spot at that point, that's a good sign that you'll make it. If you're not in a playoff spot, like that's you got to pick it up. For what it's worth, from what I remember, I think the Flames were battling, or at least were in a playoff spot last year at American Thanksgiving. Or at the very least, it was still early enough in their year where you could still give them the benefit of the doubt that they could turn it around. Obviously, we know how that ended. But I just think with the fact that, you know, it looked as if the Noah Hannafin contract talks, they were close. Like Elliot Friedman talking about it on Saturday headlines on Hockey Night in Canada. Like that's a pretty good indication that like things were progressing the right direction with that. And look, I'm sure the Flames with Elias Lindholm, I'm sure they're still thinking about that. I mean, Elias Lindholm, I think, has made it pretty clear that I think he made it pretty clear he wants his money at the end of the day. But that's a whole other discussion in itself. But the fact that the Flames were seemingly in a position to extend contracts and then almost immediately had to pivot on that, I think the fact that they have these next 4 games coming up, that really is going to play a role in how they feel with the team going forward. And it's funny because like right now, like, I mean, entering the game, they're like a bottom 5 team and they were bottom 5 in goals and they need a lot of stuff to go their way. And there are people looking at this team being like, man, like if they're going to play like this, like you retool, you sell off assets and you just suck the year. But wouldn't it be very like, I don't know if it would be very Calgary Flames of this team, but wouldn't it be funny just seeing this team play well enough to dig themselves out of the hole that they're in, and then they're just back in that mushy middle that everyone hates? Like I see it with this team. I mean, if they play well enough and they end up as a wild card team, I think that's still pretty good. But like, I wonder about the direction that this team wants to go, and I wonder how far down this team will have to be in order for Craig Conroy, the general manager of the team, to commit to a path either way. Because if this team plays well enough on this next stretch of games, maybe the team says, you know what, let's hold off on selling for a second. Let's just see how this goes, and we give ourselves more time. And ultimately, that probably means you go to the deadline and you reassess. And I still am not firmly clear on what it takes for this team in order to sell or to buy or just stay put or do whatever they need to do. If they're fighting for a playoff spot, is that enough? If they're in a wild card spot, if they're in third in the division, is that enough? If they're first or second, you could tell that they're going to keep with that team.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel with the pieces that they have and how tough it will be to sell off those assets beyond Elias Lindholm and Noah Hannafin, but even Tanev and Zadorov as well. Like I wonder, I'm not saying like they're leading in any particular direction. I just still have questions about where exactly this Flames team needs to be in order for them to pick a direction, because there's still a part of me that wonders that if they show enough signs of life and they're fighting, if the Flames just say, you know what, let's just stick with this, and then we move all the rebuild, retool talk to another time. Like I've been wondering about that myself, and I don't know if the answer is clear.
Yeah, it's not. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I've been talking about on this show. People leading into this season have been talking about in regards to the Flames is the lack of direction, or what is this team? Like you're right in the sense that like it's the same as the Gaudreau thing. They were the best team in the Pacific at the time of the trade deadline, going into an offseason where Johnny Gaudreau's unsigned. You don't trade that asset. Things are going very well, and he's Johnny Gaudreau putting up, ridiculous numbers. If at the deadline any of those pending UFAs are there, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I guess we got to kind of get through these next stretch of games here to get a better temperature on what this team's going to be.
And that's my point. I think like the fact that they were able to get out of that losing streak is good.
100%.
It is just one game. And
you're right.
And if you play well against the Nashville Predators, that's 2 wins in a row. Does that tell you enough? If you come away from that road trip with 3 consecutive wins and you're suddenly on a 5-game winning streak, what does that tell you about your team? What does that tell you if you're Craig Conroy? If you're Noah Hannafin, are you thinking, you know what, this team is able to battle back, I'm signing that extension, or are you still holding off? I don't know. I think the 5 games might tell us something. They might not, but tell you what, if they win those games, I think it cloudies the picture a little bit more. If they lose those
100%.
games, it makes it more straightforward, and you say, okay, this team really isn't good enough, and then you move on from those assets. If they win games out of this, I think it in a weird way, it makes the job a lot harder for Craig Conroy, and you take heat off yourself, and everyone gets to focus on that team to the north that's stinking up the joint.
Yeah, at least it's not Edmonton. We can say that. I wanted.
Oh, brother, the Oilers stink.
Bro's pulling out the SpongeBob references now, eh?
They look bad.
They
don't
do look
good.
bad.
It's wild. They have a 2-7-1 record. The Oilers should not look this bad.
How much more is Connor McDavid going to take of this? I know this isn't game over Edmonton, and Zach. I think Zach hosted tonight, so the boy was fired up for sure.
Yeah. Me, and Zach, we gotta break bread at Joey's or something and talk about this. But I gotta say, if you're the Edmonton Oilers right now, that's what I find so funny. The Calgary Flames are going through all of this, and they're off to a tough start, and they're not even the most interesting Albertan team to go off to a 2-7-1 start. Like the Edmonton Oilers, so many people picked them to go to the Cup final.
Man, the entire, did you see that the clip of all the Sportsnet analysts and it was all crossed
for
out
3 people.
Yeah, it was like Kyprios. I can't remember who the other 2 were picked Vegas.
Kyprios,
everybody else picked the Oilers. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple guys who had picked Vegas, but the fact that the Edmonton Oilers are in the spot that they're in, it's mind-boggling to me. You know how crazy, how wild it is? We have people out here saying, "Damn, maybe the Oilers should hire Darryl Sutter head coach." What the hell is going on?
Yeah. Shout out Justin C of Red Central on Twitter for I think he's been banging that drum a little bit.
And I get on my soapbox for another few seconds, please?
Yeah.
I need to talk about this.
All right. Let's hear
during this Flames losing streak, I've seen a lot of people bring up Darryl Sutter. And Nikita Zadorov opened that Pandora's box when he
did.
Okay. Do I think this team probably plays better under some kind of system? Maybe, as opposed to what they were trying to do with trying to encourage more creative freedom. The players just don't have that skill.
Mm-hmm.
But Darryl Sutter as a coach, look, he has the credentials to be a Hall of Fame coach. He's got the Stanley Cup wins.
Yep.
I'm not completely convinced that he was going to make this team that much better. Remember, he had the same roster and they missed the playoffs.
Yep, he did.
This team was going through bad times. Darryl Sutter was not the dude who was going to turn Franz upside down and tell everyone to be positive.
No,
that was not the guy.
No,
he was not the guy. He was not the guy. Y'all could go read the story that I worked on with Katie Strang and Haley Salvi for a couple months ago, where it was not fun playing with Darryl Sutter.
I'll bet you it wasn't fun talking with Darryl Sutter after every fucking game last year either. And I know you can I'm
have I told my Michael Backlund story about that? I don't know if I told that story on
I don't
Game
remember.
Over.
I don't think so.
So my favorite Darryl Sutter story of all time. It's funny you mentioned talking to him. My favorite Darryl Sutter story of all time. And I only have so many. Michael Backlund is in a scrum with us last year around the time he's about to play his 900th NHL game. And he's telling us how he doesn't want to wear number 11 before this one season. He was wearing 61 before.
Yeah.
I might have written about it, but for those who didn't read it, I'm telling the story. So he's all like, "Hey, I don't want to wear 11. I don't want to wear 11. I hope Darryl doesn't give me 11." Sure enough, he gets there that season.
I remember the story now.
Darryl Sutter
told me at lunch.
Okay, I told you at lunch, but maybe the people here haven't listened.
No, they haven't heard it.
So all that. Michael Backlund doesn't want to enter the new season with wearing a number 11, and Darryl Sutter decides, "I'm giving this man number 11." And we're all in the scrum here in this story. And we're like, "Geez, why does he want to give him number 11?" And someone in the locker room had kind of mentioned that, okay, the reason why he got 11 was because he wanted to appear taller. And I'm like, what? Really? Why would this? Why? Really? That's such a weird thing. I walk out of the locker room. Darryl Sutter happens to be there. So I just go to Darryl. I'm like, "Hey, Darryl, Michael Backlund wearing 11. Why did you give him this number?" I kid you not. He looks at me and I know this is gonna sound weird for those who are just watching on audio. He looks at me and he starts waving his arms up and down, like an inflatable tube man.
Like these guys,
and like up and down. And I stare at him for a good like 5 seconds, and I'm like, "You did this because you wanted him to look taller." He's like, "Yep." And I was just like,
wow.
What? What?
So there was validity to the whole, you just wanted Bax to look a little taller.
That's my favorite. I mean, I don't have a lot of, like, I think by comparison to some of my other colleagues who covered him, I was spared. I don't have any, like, there was like one time I asked who was going to start in net, and Darryl was like, "Well, you're new here. You can't ask those questions, so don't do that. You're new, so I'm not going to get you. Don't ask those questions." But like, I didn't get, unfortunately, not to reference my man here, but I didn't get the Solemn Volgy.
No, dude,
like,
bro,
it's very different.
How much did we talk about that last year? Solemn asked all the greatest questions ever, and every time I heard, so we'll go over to Solemn Volgy TSN, I'm like, oh fuck. Pray for my boy.
I don't think he likes that reputation.
No, and I'm not trying to paint him with that reputation, but
fun.
No, but in fairness, every Flames fan that I saw on Twitter absolutely backed Solemn every time he asked him a question, because he asked
really good questions.
Unreal questions.
Job in those scrums. And
Daryl's just a fucking prick. Daryl's a fucking prick. I can say that. I can say that.
For a lot of our jobs, it was not the easiest. So when we heard Ryan Husko was getting hired, who sometimes would fill in for Darryl for some of those pressers, I gotta say, I couldn't find too many people who were in total opposition of that. Especially
thank fucking God. A collective sigh of relief. I want to ask you one thing before we hit the presser about that this whole up and down thing.
Yes.
Was anybody walking out of the room while you're standing there looking up at Darryl and all he's doing is this to you? Like, was there any judgment?
I don't remember, and
I don't know what I would
notice because I was just fixated on that man the whole time. I just couldn't believe that he just did this. And if it wasn't for someone telling me the reason, I would have just been like, "What the hell are you doing?" It's the fact that it immediately clicked in my head. Oh my God, he really did this so he could seem taller. And this was his way of explaining why that came to be. It's
unreal.
It's really wild. And it's also just, I don't know. It's funny to see how Darryl, like for good chunks of the year, those kind of quirky things he would do. At the beginning of the year, there was like, oh, that's just Darryl being Darryl. And then in hindsight, you look at that, you're like, maybe he shouldn't have called his $10.5 million player, say that he was taking a dump in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
Maybe he shouldn't have singled out that young player by number, which I have to say, like, he tried his best to like walk that back without full on saying like, I'm sorry. Like there were times when he was just like, okay, like I was trying to say XYZ. And that happened for like a bunch of press conferences after that. But all that to say, like, yes, fine. Darryl Sutter, in terms of what he tried to get out of this roster last year, there were some elements of that maybe they could benefit from this year. But I still don't think he brings this team to the promised land. I'm not convinced of that, especially maybe with the goaltending, it looks a little better, but like, I still think just a change was needed in that locker room. Now it's on the players. The players have to show themselves that, they're better than what they were last year. And they can, help this team get to the playoffs if that's still the goal they want to pursue. There's no more excuses on that front, to quote Nikita Zadorov. But for people who are all like, man, like Darryl Sutter wasn't the problem, there's some merit to that in some ways. But let's not act like it wasn't, it wasn't still the right call for him to go. I still think it ultimately was.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's hit the presser here. I put a call out on the in the live chat there for some questions. We do have a good amount of questions, actually, Julian. So
give me the questions, man.
Here's one from Mitch. Says, are the Sharks the worst team ever? Golly,
they look like it, brother. They look like it. I mean, I back in Montreal, I did a show, Hockey Inside Out, which covered the Montreal Canadiens. One of the panelists who was on that show was a defenseman by the name of Rick Green, who was the #1 overall pick of the Washington Capitals of 74, 75.
Yep.
I want to say, at the very least, he was on that team that was like the worst team ever. And I need to double check if they've ever been in a situation where they allowed 10 goals in back-to-back games. It is awful. I feel bad for Anthony Duclair. That is like the one player I feel worse for
genuinely
more than anyone on that team. That dude was on like a high-powered, high-flying Florida Panthers team. He was in the Stanley Cup final like a couple months ago, and now he's on the worst possible team
dumpster fire team.
Oh my God.
What's enticing to go to San Jose? The weather.
Right now? I mean, the weather, you're not getting nearly as much attention.
Yeah.
You might be able to hear yourself think at the arena now because people are less and less are going to show up to games.
Yeah.
I was in a group chat tonight, and one of my friends was saying like, "Yo, like David Quinn, the head coach, maybe he's probably going to get fired." I think David Quinn should quit. I think he should quit before they get it to him, because I don't know how you coach a team and you
imagine
allow
getting
10
fired from that team.
That's not fair. Like what? I would quit. Man.
Yeah,
and
tough.
Mike Greer, general manager of that team. Look, if the goal's to tank, you're definitely succeeding.
Oh, they're
Could
the
you
tank
imagine
commanders.
Imagine you go through a season like that. You finish dead last, and you get the 3rd overall pick. You don't even get Macklin. You don't even get in the discussion for Backlund or Cole. You get the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, it's how it's gonna work. It happens every year. When do we ever see?
God.
When do we ever see exactly what the odds for the lottery suggest that they will be? It's.
But you can still get good players.
Oh yeah.
In a draft spot, like Detroit, like in the bubble year, or the 2019-2020 year was like the worst team, and like that was the year the Rangers won. They had played in the play-in games. They still got the number 1 overall pick. Detroit ended up picking 4th, and is that the Mo Seider year? Or is that the Lucas Raymond year?
I think it was Mo Seider, I believe.
I mean, Mo Seider's a good defenseman, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's still a pretty good pick for them. They got him 4th overall. You can get there are some good players you can get at 4th overall. There's that guy in Colorado who's doing really well.
Yeah, that guy.
You know, that guy who's also from Alberta.
Yeah, the Calgary, Alberta native who graced the Alberta Junior Hockey League with his presence with the Brooks Bandits. And
tell you what, when that new arena opens up in Calgary, great guy to have. Great guy to have on that team if they find a way.
Hey, I think he's up by then. He's up by then.
Wow.
I think.
Gotta say, man. Yeah. Wow. That guy ends up showing up. He ends up being signed to the Calgary Flames. What a signing that would be, huh?
Absolutely.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, we got a long ways to go before we get there. This one for you. It's from Nate. He says, "What was your favorite aspect of being at the Heritage Classic last weekend?" He says he thinks he remembers you saying at the Game Over meetup that was your first outdoor game that you've been to.
Yeah, it was the very first outdoor game I was ever at. And partway through the game, in the second period, I actually ran into producer Nick Andrade. Mm-hmm. He's been going all over the place.
He's got he's a suitcase, as they say. As of
nice.
Late.
But yeah, him and I and Tom Stewart, who does a lot of video stuff for Sportsnet, we just hung out kind of along the concourse at Commonwealth Stadium, and we're just taking in the sights and sounds of the game. Mm-hmm. And it just sounded amazing. Like in the press box, it's warm, and you're by your desk, and you've got all the chocolates, and you got like all the candies and stuff to kind of keep you, in good shape while you're watching this game. But to be outside and to take in the atmosphere, like it just felt so cool to just be there and watch the game from as close as you can in that setting. It looked beautiful. It looked awesome. It wasn't that cold. It was like 3 degrees Celsius around puck drop. Like I had a lot of fun tapping into that game and taking in everything. I mean, Nickelback was all right too. Like the concert was actually not that bad. They should have played Burn It to the Ground, but I really enjoyed watching that show and watching those guys perform. I never thought I'd be at a Nickelback concert in my life.
It was a very Alberta experience.
It was an extremely Albertan experience.
That's a welcome to Berta.
Welcome to Berta.
Welcome to
Battle of
Berta.
Alberta.
Yeah. It's how many fuck Trudeau stickers did you see on trucks on the way up? Alberta's got to have the most per capita, the most F Trudeau stickers. It's
I'm
so
trying
funny.
to think how many I saw. There's the one that really stood out to me on the drive back. Someone left like a flat Earth like banner in the middle of some like farmland with like a phone number, like some like flat Earth society.
Bro, so
like,
between Wetaskiwin and Edmonton, the craziest signs on the side of the road.
Dog.
The craziest signs on the side of the road. I was like, I got to the Pint, and I was Peter and I were just waiting, and I was like, "Did you drive up here?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Did you see such and such sign in Wetaskiwin?" He's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Did you see this one?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." And it's back and forth. There's some fucking just crazy signs.
By the way,
the further north you go in Alberta.
To everyone who wanted to be to everyone who was at the Pint and didn't see me there, I'm sorry. I got there late. I tried to run off the game, tried to get there on time. I was not able to make it. I apologize.
You looked, in fairness, you looked fucking gassed, and rightfully
I was
so.
exhausted.
You had a busy weekend.
I was exhausted. Like, my voice was definitely not at 100%. And that was mostly because I spent the Friday night at a karaoke bar with Oilers TV man Tony Brar. And Avery Lewis McDougall was also part of that group. He did not sing. Avery Lewis McDougall was just hanging out with us, and he was just chilling there. He got his little ginger ale, like he hanging out. He's not doing much. Like, I thought he was gonna at least come up and like sing, but he was just like, "You think I'm gonna embarrass myself for all these people?"
He's too sophisticated of a man to do karaoke. I love.
He wears fedoras. How sophisticated can you be?
Hey,
love you, Avery.
So we were actually planning, or well, not planning. Andrew mentioned this well after it should have been a thing, that we were all gonna, because Avery obviously showed up a little bit late to the show because you guys were doing your media stuff, and we were all gonna have fedoras on for when Avery showed up, and I'm like, fuck, that would have been so perfect. But it never ended up panning out. But I remember because we have
you
the
could
big.
have never got me to do that. I would have just.
No?
I would have flat out refused. Especially if Berkshire's recommending that. I would have been like, no, you can't make me do anything.
I would have made him wear one
to
too.
the dot.
I would have made him wear one too.
I would have made Berkshire wear two.
There's not very many people that can pull off a fedora, and Avery Lewis McDougall, we love him. He's about the only person I know who looks good in a fedora. We just need to get his takes on food a little bit better here. Maybe expand his palate a little bit.
That's not changing. That's not changing.
We almost made a bet. It didn't end up coming to fruition. That the loser of the Battle of Alberta had to eat one of the foods that contradict the opinions. So I was going to feed Avery a medium rare steak to get him a little bit, more acclimated to what a good steak should taste like. I don't know what he was gonna feed me, but look, I'm not too picky.
There's a reason why he didn't recommend anything. He was not eating that damn steak.
Oh, hell no, he was not gonna eat that steak. Julian, this has been a blast, as it always is, man. Look, if you're a Flames fan, you're watching this show, like Julian says, stay optimistic, but not too optimistic. Hey, tell everybody what you're up to, where they can find you, in case they live under a rock in this neck of the woods.
Follow me on Twitter, JKA McKenzie. Follow me on The Athletic. Subscribe to The Athletic. I'm sure there's some sale that's going to come up where it's going to be like 50 cents, a month or something. Black Friday's coming up.
Yeah.
Look, if you want to wait a little bit before you subscribe to The Athletic, I don't blame you. Black Friday's coming up. Just go on one of my articles and subscribe from there. That will make my employers happy. Check out the CJ Show. We do shows on Monday and Thursday. Since I'm going to be on that road trip, maybe we have an in-person show this week. We have to figure out the scheduling on that one. And be sure to check out Zone Time with Yahoo Sports. That's me, Tic Tac Tomar, Avery, Sam Chang, sometimes Arun Srinivasan. Basically, like, if you have like all of your favorite Game Over people, whether they're guests or main people, and you want them on one show all at once, Zone Time is as good as it can get.
Which is exactly why I'm not on Zone Time.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's not my call. That's not my call. Come, don't do this. Don't do this.
I was more so trying to guilt you to make, you said it, not me. But
look, man. One day I'll tell you about all the people who were suggested to be on that show. And I'll tell you what, if those people were on that show, it would look very different than what it looks like today, man. But Zone Time's a great show, man.
Hey, no, it's awesome.
That's my little baby, it's a great show.
Not to diminish it at all, because you guys do great things. So,
Thank you.
yeah, that's been it. Let's look forward. Let's get a better litmus test as to what this Calgary Flames team is, what they can be. A big stretch of games coming up for the Calgary Flames. As for your next Game Over show, it's going to be Peter Klein. It's on Tuesday, the 7th of November, against the Nashville Predators. As mentioned, Peter Klein will have that one, and then a big swing in Ontario. Maple Leafs, Senators, Canadians. Those will all be Game Over head-to-heads. So look forward to those here on SDPN Sports and the Game Over program. My name is Auddie James. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next Game Over with Peter on Tuesday. Adios.
Peace.